Welcome back to the Deep Dive. So if you've been keeping an eye on democratic trends, you've probably seen this huge paradox with young people today. On the one hand, there's that familiar story about youth apathy, right? Low voting numbers, people really disliking politicians, just generally checking out of formal politics.
Yeah, you hear that narrative a lot.
But then you look online, you look at campaigns, and there's just this incredible energy around things like ethical brands, sustainability, holding corporations accountable.
Absolutely. Huge energy.
Young people are making these really quite complex political choices, when they buy coffee or clothes or even choose a bank. They're clearly engaged politically.
Deeply political, just maybe not in the traditional sense.
Exactly. So the big question for us is, are we looking at actual apathy here, or has the whole political game just shifted, maybe from the ballot box to the supermarket aisle?
Well, that's really the core issue our source material tackles today. Yeah, this deep dive is looking into the really significant rise of what the research called political consumerism, or PC. It's especially noticeable among younger people in Europe, particularly after the financial crises.
Right.
And the central argument, which is pretty fascinating, is that this whole shift is like a dual reaction. It's a response to the big ideology of our time, neoliberalism.
A dual response. Okay. How so?
So think of it as two forces working together. First, there's the push. These are the things pushing young people out of the formal political system.
Okay, the push away from voting in parties.
Exactly. And then there's the pull, the way the marketplace itself sort of invites them in, becoming this primary space for political action. Our sources call this the marketopoly.
Marketopoly, got it. And let's quickly define PC just so we're all on the same page.
Good idea.
Basically, political consumerism is about making deliberate choices as a consumer, like avoiding one brand or actively choosing another based on how you judge that company ethically, politically, or environmentally.
Yeah, looking at their production, their labor practices, the whole package. That's PC in a nutshell.
All right, let's unpack that push first. Research seems clear. Young people aren't lazy or uninterested in democracy itself. They want it.
No, not at all.
But they seem to hit these, social or structural walls. Why does the traditional political system feel so broken or just unresponsive to them?
Well, a big part of the answer lies in how successfully neoliberalism has shaped our thinking about politics and the state.
Okay, define neoliberalism for us based on the sources.
Right. So if you boil it down, neoliberalism is this theory that says human flourishing, well-being is best achieved when you free up individual entrepreneurial freedoms.
Freedom to start businesses, compete.
Exactly. But within a specific framework, strong private property rights, free markets, free trade, and crucially, the state's role shrinks. The market is seen as better at handling things, allocating resources, even values.
And how does that ideology specifically chip away at faith in democracy?
It does it in a few key ways.
Great.
According to the analysis, three main ones stand out.
Okay.
First, you get these technocratic constraints. Remember the Eurozone crisis a decade back?
Oh, yeah. Austerity measures everywhere.
Right. And those decisions, austerity, big structural reforms, they were often framed as technical or necessary, not really political choices. They were often made by unelected experts, by technocrats, behind closed doors.
So the politicians we elect, they seem powerless. Their hands are tied by these economic rules decided elsewhere.
That's exactly the feeling it creates. It makes formal politics look like, well, just theater, like they're just carrying out orders.
Which must breed cynicism.
Hugely. And that leads straight into the second factor. A deep mistrust in politicians themselves. This isn't just accidental cynicism. It was actually fueled by some neoliberal thinkers.
Like who?
James Buchanan is a key name here. He argued that politicians aren't really public servants. They're rational actors trying to maximize their own benefit, their own utility.
So governing in their own self-interest.
Basically, yes. Looking out for number one, or their narrow interest group. And when young people hear this or see examples that seem to fit,
it reinforced that idea. Why bother? They're all just self-serving elites.
Precisely. It really poisons the well for democratic engagement. And the third factor is about how elections themselves work in this context. It's called median voter convergence.
Median voter convergence. What's that?
It's the idea that political parties, because they want to win elections, tend to aim for the middle ground, the views of the hypothetical median voter.
So they all start sounding kind of similar.
They often do, yeah. They blur their distinct ideological edges. This makes them seem really inelastic, That's the term used, meaning unresponsive.
Unresponsive to who?
To the specific demands of smaller groups or groups outside that perceived center, like young voters who might care passionately about issues that aren't yet mainstream priorities.
Like climate change action or maybe student debt?
Exactly, those kinds of issues. The system isn't set up to respond quickly or strongly to those specific pressures from the edges.
Okay, so let me recap the push. The state feels powerless because of technocrats. Politicians seem untrustworthy and self-interested, and the actual electoral system tends to ignore youth-salient issues because parties chase the center.
That's a great summary of the push factors.
So the system pushes them out.
Mm-hmm.
The market is presented as this dynamic alternative. But what's the specific pull? What makes buying stuff feel more powerful or effective than casting a vote?
Okay, the pull is all about this concept of the marketopoly. That word is key.
Marketopoly.
Right. It signifies the market not just as, where we buy and sell things. It's positioned as the par excellence habitus.
The main arena, the natural place.
Exactly. The supreme natural arena for political participation itself. In this view, the sovereign citizen casting a ballot gets kind of replaced by the sovereign consumer, casting $1 or £1 or €1.
And this isn't just a vague feeling, right? The sources say this political action in the market takes specific forms.
Very specific, yes. It boils down to two main actions people can take.
Which are boycotts and boycotts. Let's define those.
Sure. A boycott is pretty straightforward. You refuse to buy something from a company to punish them.
Punish them for what?
For practices you disagree with, maybe environmental damage, poor labor conditions, unethical sourcing. You're trying to hit their reputation and their bottom line.
Okay, and a boycott.
Is the positive version. You deliberately buy products from companies you want to support.
To reward them for doing good things.
Exactly, like choosing fair trade coffee, or clothing made from recycled materials, or banking with an ethical bank. You're voting with your wallet in a positive way.
And is this actually significant? Or is it just a few people doing it?
Oh, it's significant. The scale is quite remarkable. If you look at the UK, for example, ethical spending grew by something like 8.5% in just 1 year recently.
Wow. How much money are we talking?
It reached nearly £40 billion. And that kind of growth held up even during tough economic times.
That's huge. And does it skew young?
Absolutely. Studies consistently show that young people, say 16 to 30, are significantly more likely to engage in political consumerism than older demographics. And interestingly, the tendency seems to decrease as people get older.
So why does it appeal so strongly to younger generations? Is it just disillusionment with the old ways or something deeper?
The sources argue it's definitely deeper. There's a philosophical shift involved, often linked to Inglehart's postmaterialism thesis.
Postmaterialism.
Yeah.
What's the core idea there?
The basic idea is that when societies become more affluent, when people grow up with a certain level of material security.
So basic needs like food and safety are generally met.
Right. When that happens, people's values tend to shift. They start focusing more on postmaterialist concerns.
Like what?
Things like self-expression, human rights, environmental protection, quality of life, equality. Less about economic survival, more about values and identity.
PC fits into that.
Perfectly. Ethical consumption is a really direct way to express those post-materialist values. It allows for what some call lifestyle politics. You're not waiting for a law to change. You're enacting your values right now with your choices.
That makes sense. You also mentioned something about market dynamics changing, turning consumers into prosumers.
Yes, the prosumer idea, it reflects a shift in power. In today's market, companies often face customer scarcity, not product scarcity.
Meaning getting and keeping customers is the hard part.
Exactly. Customers have more choice, more information. This empowers them. The prosumer, it's a blend of producer and consumer, isn't just buying a finished thing.
They're influencing it.
Yeah, they're influencing the production process itself right from the start. Think about customizing products online, choosing eco-friendly options.
Or giving feedback that companies actually listen to because they need your business.
Precisely. That feeling of having direct influence, of being able to shape the product or the company's behavior, feels much more immediate and impactful than waiting years between elections.
Okay, so we have the ideological shifts with post-materialism and this empowered prosumer. But let's get really practical. What are the specific features of the market that make it such an attractive alternative to the state for these young citizen consumers?
Right, the anatomy of the pool, so to speak. The sources highlight 4 key interconnected factors.
Okay, what's the first one?
First is the ability to customize. The market lets you tailor products and services to fit your very specific individual needs or values, whether that's ethical, aesthetic, or functional.
Much harder to get that level of personalization from government policy.
Almost impossible, usually. Second, linked to that, is the ability to tailor the prices.
How so?
Well, ethical choices often exist at different price points. You can choose a level of ethical commitment that fits your budget. It follows an economic logic. Formal politics rarely offers that kind of immediate budget-based tailoring for a policy outcome.
True. Okay, third factor.
The sheer availability of information and how easily it spreads. Think about communication networks.
Social media, reviews, influencers.
Exactly. You don't need to read dense reports. You can get quick info, peer recommendations almost instantly about which brands align with your values. It's fast, accessible information.
And the fourth factor.
This one reflects how deeply that neoliberal ideology we talked about has sunk in. It's the fundamental trust in the market environment itself.
Trusting the market more than the state.
In many ways, yes. There's often an underlying belief, maybe subconscious, that the market is just more rational, more efficient, more dynamic, that it's the best way to get things done, whether that's delivering a product or delivering social change.
It's interesting, this idea you mentioned, individualized collective action. It sounds like a contradiction.
It does, doesn't it? But it captures the essence of PC. You're making a very personal choice. I buy this, I don't buy that.
Super individualistic.
Totally. But the belief driving it is that these individual choices, when aggregated, have real collective political impact. People feel they can be, and this is a quote, authors of global political acts through their consumption.
So they're aiming their political action directly at companies, not government buildings.
Right. They're bypassing the state structures, which feel slow and unresponsive. It blurs the lines between private consumption and public action in a way voting doesn't. It gives this feeling of immediate effectiveness, moral clarity, perhaps.
Okay, so we've laid out why PC is happening, how it works, why it's appealing. It's clearly a real thing, filling a void left by disillusionment with formal politics.
Definitely a major phenomenon.
But now we hit the core tension, the big question raised in the source material. Is this political consumerism genuine democratic resistance? Or is it actually just neoliberalism wearing a different hat?
Ah, yes. This is where the debate gets really heated. It's the central paradox.
So what's the argument against it, the critique?
The critics argue that PC is fundamentally trapped within the logic of the very system it claims to oppose the marketopoly.
It can't escape the market.
That's the argument. They'd say it's just a consumerist syndrome, maybe a soft focus of kitsch, basically, a weak, commercialized copy of real political struggle.
Kitsch. That's harsh.
It is. The main theoretical worry here is commodification, meaning it takes something profound like civic duty, moral choice, the fight for justice, and reduces it to just another transaction. Buy the justice brand.
So citizenship gets colonized by consumerism. Social issues become product categories.
That's the fear, that you're essentially buying feel-good absolution, the market captures your ethical impulse, and the underlying structures don't really change. The market ultimately wins because it facilitated the transaction.
Okay, that's a powerful critique. What's the defense? How do proponents see it?
Proponents push back strongly. They argue that, realistically, in today's world dominated by corporate power and often unresponsive states, PC is actually one of the most effective tools available for resistance.
That's so.
It empowers that sovereign citizen consumer we talked about to directly reward or punish corporations based on their actions. It provides leverage.
And does that leverage lead anywhere beyond the checkout?
They argue it does. Crucially, the pressure from consumer campaigns, the boycotts and boycotts, can eventually force important issues onto the mainstream political agenda.
Like demands for fair wages or carbon neutrality goals, things governments then have to address.
Exactly. The argument is neoliberalism might have forced citizens to act like consumers, but PC tries to flip that script. It uses the tools of consumerism to redefine consumers back into politically engaged citizens.
Like a kind of political judo.
Yeah.
Using the market's own logic against itself.
That's a great way to put it, using the opponent's momentum.
Right. Let's try and summarize the main takeaway from this deep dive for you, the listener. What we're seeing with declining traditional voting among the young, It doesn't necessarily mean they're checked out politically. It's not the end of citizenship.
No, it looks more like a transformation.
Exactly. Citizenship is shifting, moving into these alternative arenas, especially the marketplace.
And that shift is driven by those two forces we discussed.
Yeah, the push from a state that feels technically constrained and politically untrustworthy.
And the pull from the market, amplified by the postmaterialist values and the sense of empowerment felt by the young prosumer.
Who finds making an ethical choice at the checkout feels, well, more direct and maybe more effective than waiting for an election.
It offers that immediate feedback loop.
Which leaves us with a really provocative final thought for you to chew on, drawn from the source's conclusion about this inherent conflict.
Okay.
If neoliberalism itself, by pushing politics into the market, actually creates this empowered, critical citizen consumer, does that mean it kind of contains the seeds of its own undoing? Could PC ultimately challenge the system that spawned it?
That's one possibility. But here's the counterthought. Even if political consumerism is successful in challenging specific companies or practices today,
Will the market just adapt?
will it inevitably co-opt that resistance? Will it turn every successful ethical campaign, every boycott, into just another profitable market segment?
Thereby ultimately strengthening the very marketopoly that PC was trying to fight against.
Exactly. Does resistance just become another commodity? That's the unsettling question.
Something to definitely think about next time you're at the shops deciding where your money, your vote is going to go. Thanks for joining us for the deep dive.